Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pick Six podcast. Katie Moxon, Will Brinson here. And you know it. You are back for our All 32 series, the series where we catch you up with insiders from every NFL team and get you the information that you need before the season starts. Today, we're covering the LA Charger with senior writer for the Chargers, Eric Smith. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. How's everything in California?
Oh, about 75 and sunny. It's pretty nice out here.
Yes.
Camp starts this week. We're excited to get going.
Love it. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm muted myself. Right. Everything's coming up, Brinson, today. It is currently 80 degrees in my house right now. So it's like hotter in my house with the air conditioning running than it is in California, which is just a reminder that maybe I should go live in California, where Kellen Moore recently just moved after a long run in Dallas. I don't know where that segue came from, but I'll run with it. He's replacing Joe Lombardi as the OC there. I mean, I think it was such a natural fit, Eric, when Mike McCarthy decided to mutually part ways, however the heck they did it. And it was like, all right, the Chargers have maybe the best thrower of a deep ball in football in Justin Herbert, and you can add Kellen Moore after a season which they saw this low ADOT approach. I mean, how vertical do you think this offense will be in 2023?
Yeah, you make a good point. I think it'll be much more vertical than what we saw last year. If OTAs and minicamp was any indication, Herbert was slinging the ball down the field way more than what we saw last year. Now that has to translate, right, and carry over into camp and games. It's easy in 7-on-7 when there's no pass rush and all that. But from all the indications now, yeah, it should be a little bit more vertical passing attack. Obviously, Mike Williams is good in that category. We drafted Quentin Johnson. Jalen Guyton is coming back. He's trying to get healthy from that ACL. He's got plenty of speed. So the Chargers have the pieces, obviously the big one being Herbert's arm to get the ball down the field. But, yeah, we're hoping it's a little bit more explosive this year than it was last year.
All right, let's talk about Austin Ekeler, a friend of the podcast. He seems to be at the forefront, leading the charge, if you will, if you see what we did there, on this underpaid running back front. Do we think that he will get a new deal from the Chargers, and is there going to be kind of a chip on his shoulder this season? How do you see this playing out, basically?
Yeah, I think things are pretty resolved as they can be right now. He got the extra incentives a couple weeks ago, so I think that should kind of quell the waters a little bit going into the year. Other than that, I mean, most of that stuff gets handled after, during the off season. So he'll probably just play out this final year, see how he does. The team and his side will come back together probably in the offseason. In terms of the chip being on his shoulder, that is a yes, but not in addition to this. It's more so just his overall mindset. He's an undrafted guy out of a small, Colorado college. He has always had a chip on his shoulder. And even if he scored, he scored 38 touchdowns in 2 years, he still has that chip on his shoulder. He still thinks he's underrated. So, and all this contract stuff, I can tell you, that's not going to affect how Austin plays on the field. He was here for minicamp in great shape. His teammates know he's going to bring it, the contract, or not, he's going to bring it. And that's why he's the team captain.
Quentin Johnson got added in the draft. One of my favorite players in this draft out of TCU. I think the national stage against Georgia probably didn't do him any favors. Didn't do really anybody from TCU any favors. But I kind of see him as a pretty nice fit, especially when we talk about the verticality of this offense. How do you see him sort of the target share shaping up with Keenan Allen, Big Mike? You had Quentin there, and then you got, of course, Jalen Guyton, who's also an explosive deep threat.
Yeah, the good thing about Q is that he had the talent, right, to be wide receiver one. That's why he was a first-round pick. But the Chargers are not going to ask him to be that wide receiver one right away, and he's not going to be with Mike and Keenan. The battle he's going to be involved in camp is at wide receiver 3, probably with Josh Palmer, who's a third-round pick a couple years ago. The Chargers don't need Q to come in and catch 100 balls. To come in, learn the offense, know the offense, carve out a role for yourself, and just kind of progress at your own rate. In saying that, just because there's low expectations per se, they still want him to come in and thrive. So even though they're not asking him to be wide receiver one, they still want him to kind of have that mindset, right? Because at some point down the road, he probably will have to be wide receiver one. That could be 2-3 years down the road. But why not kind of start developing that mindset now so he's ready for the future?
All right, let's talk about Herbie fully loaded, Justin Herbert. I don't know if you saw Brinson's quarterback tiers. It made the rounds around quite a few media outlets.
Yelled at a lot.
Luckily for you on this podcast, he did put Justin Herbert in the second tier. Okay, we're not going to talk about Kyler Murray in the sixth tier, which generated a lot of buzz. But does he deserve to be in the first tier based on his career so far?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you look at it, he has almost every record, passing record or records in the first 3 seasons. There's a whole list of stuff that he has. One thing I'd say is that, he still needs to prove himself in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's not really that's something that will come in time, right? Because that's just kind of the natural progression or storyline from a young quarterback. Like, he's still young. He's still only 25. He's just been around for 3-4 years now where he's had a lot of success. And the thing is, he will always get compared to Patrick Mahomes. They're in the same conference, in the same division. Burrow, Allen, all those guys are going to be lumped together for the next 10, 15 years, whatever it is. So, yes, I would put Herbert in that category. But nationally, I think he needs to have that playoff success on a bigger stage. And then people like will kind of bump up.
No, I mean, that's sort of like where it was at, though. It's like kind of looking at, because it was Hurts, Lawrence, Lamar, just because of the injuries, and then Herbert. And like, if I was ranking them how I think that they most likely to take a step into the first tier, for me, it's either, I think they could all do it, honestly. All 4 of them could do it. It's not an either or proposition. But Herbert, if he won one playoff game this year, it would be, and losing that playoff game wasn't even his fault, right? Like, he had the team in a position. He's like, what do you want me to do? The playoff, it's just weird stuff happens in the Chargers in the playoffs sometimes, as we talked about before the show. But it's like, it wouldn't shock me at all if the Chargers went out and won a playoff game or two, and then it was easy to say Herbert's in that first tier. Same thing with Lawrence, same thing with Hurts, and with Lamar. I don't think anything would be shocking. One of the things that they need to do, the defense has got to stay healthy. Defense has to stop the teams like the Jaguars from scoring a bunch of points in the second half. What's stopping the defense from being just completely elite? Is it health or just being in the same division as Patrick Mahomes? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I put health at the top of the list. The Chargers have, a funny history or a bad history with injury luck. And last year, it seemed like it really just kind of snowballed a little bit. Like, a lot of guys got hurt, especially up front along the defensive line. They have the talent, right? If you look at it on paper, they have a very talented defense. They have a great defensive play caller and scheme guy, right, for lack of a better phrase, than Brandon Staley. He's one of the best defensive minds in all of football. It's just kind of having it all come together. And in year 3, I think the time is ripe for it to all come together. Health will be a big factor in that. But in terms of what they have to do other than stay healthy, they have to stop the run, and especially on the outside. And losing Joey Bosa last year really hurt that. After he went out, the team gave up a bunch of explosive runs to the outside, 40 plus, 70 plus yards, and that's just really kind of just it's just demoralizing to give those up. So that's been a big focus, and if that happens, then it obviously put pressure on the quarterback with the pass rush and all that. And the Chargers secondary was good last year. I think they were top 10 in passing yards allowed per game. And if J.C. Jackson can come back healthy, that's just a boost, to what it is already a pretty solid secondary.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we're going to discuss the O-line with our guy, Eric, from the Chargers. You're watching Pick 6. We'll be right back. All right, Eric, the Chargers have invested heavily in the O-line. Phillip Rivers would like a word on this, right? Finally, they invest in the O-line. Poor guy. He's got a lot of kids, and they didn't seem to protect him very well. But there's no question that the starters on the left side.
He's got one more. He's got a freaking an offensive unit. It's ridiculous. So we couldn't be more pumped for our 10th kid.
And he's having another one. All right, but there's no question that the starters on the left side are good enough. But is the full O-line and the depth good enough to give Herbert time this season?
Yeah, I think so, and I get what you're saying about the right side, just because there's a little bit of more unknown on that side with Jamari Sawyer and Trey Pipkins at guard and tackle. Jamari was like a really good left tackle last year when Slater went out, and
Yeah.
I think people kind of just like didn't really know that, honestly, just because like he was a 6th-round pick, kind of a guy that came out of nowhere. But he played guard at Georgia and has experience on the inside. And the Chargers kind of wanted to pair their two guards and tackles with the same like athletic profile. So on the left side, you have Rashawn and Zion, who are both like pretty athletic guys. And on the right side, you have Jamari and Trey. Those are like bigger, like beefier guys. And so, yeah, I think they're going to pair well together. Trey Pipkins actually played pretty well last year. He was just hurt and like played through like a pretty serious knee injury. So his play was a little bit like erratic overall, but he showed the toughness to be on the field. For them, pass protection is probably pretty good. Again, with the Chargers, they need to run the ball better, and that's kind of the big focus for that group heading into camp.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I feel like with the offensive line too is like, man. I mean, I guess I look at the Chargers, and to me, it's like, what is stopping this team from being like the best team in football? Yeah, like I mean, like, what is is there still a sense around the team that it's like you're always a little nervous that there's something that's going to happen? Because again, and I'm not being critical of the Chargers here, because I've rooted for the Chargers for a long time. Same thing with NC State, right? It happens all the time. It's just you're always a little wary. Do you think that's maybe the one thing that's holding this team back, is sort of like a mentality, or is it like a sense of like maybe there's bad luck lurking? Like what's the one thing holding this team back from making that leap to elite?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's something the team and the franchise has been trying to answer for a while. I'll say that like the current coaches and players don't really think about that, and they obviously get questioned about it, right? Especially with how the playoffs ended last year. But Brandon Staley kind of like shoos it away when he gets questions like that. He's like, "Hey, I'm trying to create like my own culture here," and he definitely has in his first 2 years, like going into year 3. So he wants like the challenge of kind of being that team and being that coach to help get the team over the hump. It just got to happen, really. I mean, that's all there is to it.
It's just got to happen. That's all there is to it. All right, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today and talking Chargers. We appreciate it. Stay tuned for more All 32 with daily drops in your podcast feed and on YouTube. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this video as well. Eric, again, thank you for your time. And I'm pulling for the Chargers this year. I bet on them last year to go really far. It didn't work out, but something's got to give.
Yeah, I want the Chargers to win and win big. The Chargers high for life. Appreciate it.
I love Herbert.
Okay, thanks, guys.